Hi everybody. Okay, this one is another movie starring Antonio Coppola and Erica Christensen actually. Okay, and you might remember the name Erica Christensen from Swim Fan made in 2002, The Banger Sisters with Goldie Hawn and Susan Sarandon. So she's got a lot of movies under her belt. But I'd like to point out a couple of things here. Um, okay. If you notice the titles, the phrases have to do with weddings. To have and to hold, for better or for worse, a theme. Okay. But Antonio Coppola plays the complete opposite of the character in the last film because he is a cheater. He is a cheater through and through. But the character Erica Alice falls for the guy that she could never thought she could have in middle school, and because he was too cool for her. Um, Meanwhile, this other guy Harry, played by Andy Favreau, is great. You know, he respects her. He doesn't want her to change. He likes her the way she is, all that stuff. And there's no romantic component to it because he's been chicken and hasn't told her that he likes her. Um, Actually, what happens is um, he wrote a note for her detailing everything, but he wrote it the night before he went on this trip and he hid it. And it was hidden underneath the cushion in her sofa for 3 years. Meanwhile, because he never said anything, she goes on to marry the school crush. The school crush doesn't work out because he promises her all these things, but he asked her to give up little pieces of herself until she's totally given herself up just to be with him. And like he doesn't have the right reactions that you're supposed to have. Okay, they get married, and like I said, he makes all the promises, and then he all of a sudden is willing to spend money for this separate cottage, and and at first I'm like, okay, there's something fishy here because first of all, both people in a marriage going into a marriage should be over the moon. So the fact that one part of the couple is not over the moon, there's a problem. And then I also said there's a problem because if he's so willing to give out money for another place, maybe he's hiding something. So yeah, it turns out that I was right and he had been cheating on her for years with different people. And what would happen is she would catch him in an affair. He would apologize, and say he'll never do it again. And then he'd do it again. And he always said he had to work late, but you know. So yeah. So then what happens is she goes to New York and she's supposed to be really happy, but she's really not because I don't know, she's doing it for his career. And let me explain. There's one thing I forgot because this movie is kind of like a few movies I've seen before. Well, they start at the end and kind of go to the beginning and then meet up, you know? So, okay, you start off with her in New York and she says, "You would think I'd be the happiest girl, but I'm not." And so you're like, "Oh no, okay. How did we get here?" So then the rest of the movie tells you how they got there. Um, okay, so at first she wants to be a chef. She wants to be a world-class chef and everything and make desserts. And apparently she's a really good cook because the other guy, Harry, is saying, why don't you do your catering company and you're great at that. And she's like, well, yeah, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. So like I said, in the course of the relationship before the marriage, she gives up herself to be with the guy, and that's one thing you should never do. Number one. Number two, like I said, if he's acting sketch, there's probably a reason for that. Um, and I don't know. I'd say I know this is a movie and stuff, and it's done for dramatic purposes, but I I can attest in my own life that I've had that little voice in your head or the little voice inside. And first it starts off a whisper, something's wrong. Or you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, but you don't listen to it. Well, I got news for you. That voice becomes louder and louder and louder until you listen to it. And then when you finally listen to it, then you have peace. But so what happens is, of course, they finally separate and divorce, like they should have done in the very beginning, like right after the first affair. But okay. So then she says all she wants is the cottage, and she gets that. And then finally, Harry, her best friend, steps up to the plate and says, "I've always loved you," yada yada yada. So they end up get together. But I'm telling you, this movie was a journey, and I watched the whole 3 hours. I think it was 2.5, 3 hours, and I was riveted to the screen the entire time. And it had so many twists and turns that you really weren't sure where it was going to go. I mean, I kind of knew where I wanted it to go, but that's not always the case. And coming up, like not today, but in the future, I'll show some examples of things where you think the movie's going to go one way and it totally goes sideways. So it does happen like that. But this one did end well. But like I said, you had to wait to the end to get there. So it's worth the watch. Um, I found it on YouTube, but I have a premium membership, so I probably get more content than the average person. And plus, because I don't have ads anymore, I can just watch stuff straight through, so it's great. But you should look it up. You should look up both movies I was just talking about because they are worth a watch. All right, bye guys.